Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC-002 Human Resource Management for MBA program. Presenting Block 2 Sourcing of Human Resources, Unit-6 Recruitment and Selection Part 2. Selection test. A test is a sample of an aspect of an individual's behavior, performance, or attitude. It can also be a systematic procedure for comparing the behavior of two or more persons. Purpose of test. The basic assumption underlying the use of test in personnel selection is that individuals are different in their job-related abilities and skills, and that these skills can be adequately and accurately measured. Tests seek to eliminate the possibility of prejudice on the part of the interviewer or supervisor. Potential ability only will govern selection decisions. The other major advantage is that the test may uncover qualifications and talents that would not be detected by interviews or by listing of education and job experience. Type of test. The various tests used in selection can be put into four categories. Number 1, achievement or intelligence test. Number 2, aptitude or potential ability test. Number 3, personality test. And number 4, interest test. These tests and what they measure are discussed in the forthcoming paragraphs. Number 1, achievement or intelligence test. These are also called proficiency test. These measure the skill or knowledge which is acquired as a result of a training program and on-the-job experience. These measure what the applicant can do, and they are of two types. Number 1, test for measuring job knowledge. These are known as trade test. These are administered to determine knowledge of typing, shorthand, and in operating calculators, adding machines, dictating and transcribing machines, or simple mechanical equipment. These are primarily oral tests consisting of a series of questions which are believed to be satisfactorily answered only by those who know and thoroughly understand the trade or occupation. Oral test may be supplemented by written, picture, or performance types. Work sample test. These measure the proficiency with which equipment can be handled by the candidate. This is done by giving him a piece of work to judge how efficiently he does it. For example, a typing test would provide the material to be typed and note the time taken and mistakes committed. Next is aptitude or potential ability test. These tests measure the latent ability of a candidate to learn a new job or skill. Through these tests, you can detect peculiarity or defects in a person's sensory or intellectual capacity. These focus attention on particular types of talent such as learning, reasoning, and mechanical or musical aptitude. Instruments used are variously described as test of intelligence, mental ability, mental alertness, or simply as personnel test. These tests are of three types. Number 1, mental test. These measure the overall intellectual ability or the intelligence quotient, that is IQ of a person, and enable us to know whether he has the mental capacity to deal with new problems. These determine an employee's fluency in language, memory, interaction, reasoning, speed of perception, and spatial visualization. Number 2, mechanical aptitude test. These measure the capacity of a person to learn a particular type of mechanical work. These are useful when apprentices, machinists, mechanics, maintenance workers, and mechanical technicians are to be selected. Number 3 is psychomotor or skill test. These measure a person's ability to do a specific job. These are administered to determine mental dexterity or motor ability and similar attributes involving muscular movement, control, and coordination. These are primarily used in the selection of workers who have to perform semi-skilled and repetitive jobs like assembly work, packing, testing, inspection, and so on. Next is personality test. These discover clues to an individual's value system, his emotional reactions, maturity, and his characteristic mood. The tests help in assessing a person's motivation, his ability to adjust himself to the stresses of everyday life, and his capacity for interpersonal relations and for projecting an impressive image of himself. They are expressed in terms of the relative significance of such traits of a person as self-confidence, ambition, tact, emotional control, optimism, decisiveness, sociability, conformity, objectivity, patience, fear, distrust, initiative, judgment, dominance, impulsiveness, sympathy, integrity, and stability. These tests are given to predict potential performance and success for supervisory or managerial jobs. The personality tests are basically of three types. Number 1. Objective test. These measure neurotic tendencies, self-sufficiency, dominance, submission, and self-confidence. Number 2. Projective test. In these tests, a candidate is asked to project his own interpretation onto certain standard stimuli. The way in which he responds to these stimuli depends on his own values, motives, and personality. And number 3 is situation test. These measure an applicant's reaction when he is placed in a peculiar situation, his ability to undergo stress, and his demonstration of ingenuity under pressure. These tests usually relate to a leaderless group situation in which some problems are posed to a group and its members are asked to reach some conclusions without the help of a leader. And the last is interest test. These tests are designed to discover a person's areas of interest and to identify the kind of work that will satisfy him. The interest tests are used for vocational guidance and are assessed in the form of answers to a well-prepared questionnaire. Limitations of selection test. From the basic description of tests described so far, one should not conclude that a 100% prediction of an individual's on-the-job success can be made through these tests. These tests at best reveal that candidates who have scored above the predetermined cutoff points are likely to be more successful than those who have scored below the cutoff point. Tests are useful when the number of applicants is large. Moreover, tests will serve no useful purpose if they are not properly constructed or selected or administered. Precautions in using selection test. Test results can help in selecting the best candidates if certain precautions are taken. Number 1. Norms should be developed as a source of reference on all tests used in selection and on a representative sample of people on a given job in the same organization. This is necessary even though standard tests are available now under each of the mentioned categories. Norms developed elsewhere should not be blindly used because companies differ in their requirements, culture, organization structure, and philosophy. Number 2. Some warm-up should be provided to candidates either by giving sample of test or answering queries before the test begins. Number 3. Tests should first be validated for a given organization and then administered for selection of personnel to the organization. Number 4. Each test used should be assigned a weightage in the selection. Number 5. Test scoring, administration and interpretation should be done by persons having technical competence and training in testing. Interview. We shall now discuss the post-application form interview and not the preliminary interview. Personal interview is the most universally used tool in any selection process. Meaning and purpose. An interview is a conversation with a purpose between one person on one side and another person or persons on the other. An employment interview should serve three purposes. Number 1, obtaining information. Number 2, giving information. And number 3, motivation. It should provide an appraisal of personality by obtaining relevant information about the prospective employee's background, training, work history, education, and interest. The candidate should be given information about the company, the specific job, and the personnel policies. It should also help in establishing a friendly relationship between the employer and the applicant and motivate the satisfactory applicant to want to work for the company or organization. In practice, however, it may turn out to be a one-sided affair. It helps only in obtaining information about the candidate. The other two purposes are generally not served. Types of interview. Informal interview. This may take place anywhere. The employer or a manager in the personnel department may ask a few questions like name, place of birth, previous experience, etc. It is not planned and is used widely when the labor market is tight and you need workers very badly. A friend or a relative of the employer may take a candidate to the house of the employer or manager where this type of interview may be conducted. Formal interview. This is held in a more formal atmosphere in the employment office by the employment officer with the help of well-structured questions. The time and place of the interview are stipulated by the employment office. Planned interview. This is a formal interview carefully planned. The interviewer has a plan of action worked out in relation to time to be devoted to each candidate, type of information to be sought, information to be given, the modality of interview, and so on. He may use the plan with some amount of flexibility. Patterned interview. This is also a planned interview but planned to a higher degree of accuracy, precision, and exactitude. A list of questions and areas are carefully prepared. The interviewer goes down the list of questions, asking them one after another. Non-directive interview. This is designed to let the interviewee speak his mind freely. The interviewer is a careful and patient listener, prodding whenever the candidate is silent. The idea is to give the candidate complete freedom to sell himself without encumbrances of the interviewer's questions. Depth interview. This is designed to intensively examine the candidate's background and thinking and to go into considerable detail on a particular subject to special interest to the candidate. The theory behind it is that if the candidate is found good in his area of special interest, the chances are high that if given a job, he would take serious interest in it. Stress interview. This is designed to test the candidate and his conduct and behavior by putting him under conditions of stress and strain. This is very useful to test the behavior of individuals under disagreeable and trying situations. Group interview. This is designed to see how the candidates react to and against each other. All the candidates may be brought together in the office and they may be interviewed. The candidate may alternatively be given a topic for discussion and be observed as to who will lead the discussion, how they will participate in the discussion, how each will make his presentation, and how they will react to each other's views and presentation. Panel interview. This is done by members of the interview board or a selection committee. This is done usually for supervisory and managerial positions. It pools the collective judgment and wisdom of the members of the panel. The candidate may be asked to meet the panel individually for a fairly lengthy interview. Interview rating. Important aspects of personality can be categorized under 7 main headings. They are: Number 1. Physical makeup. It includes health, physique, age, appearance, bearing, and speech. Number 2. Attainments. It includes education, occupational training, and experience. Number 3. Intelligence. It includes basic and effective. Number 4. Special aptitudes. That is, written and oral fluency of expression, numeracy, organizational ability, and administrative skill. Number 5. Interest. It includes intellectual, practical, physically active, social, and artistic skills. Number 6, disposition. It includes self-reliance, nature, motivation, and acceptability. And number 7, circumstances. It includes domestic, social background and experience, and future prospects. This is called the 7-point plan. The importance of each of these points will vary from organization to organization and from job to job. Hence, these should be assigned weightage according to their degree of importance for the job. On the basis of information gathered through an interview, each candidate should be rated in respect of each point discussed so far. Number 1, outstanding. Number 2, good. Number 3, above average. Number 4, below average. Number 5, unsatisfactory. Marks should be allotted to each of these, and the score for each point is arrived at by multiplying it by weights, and the total of all these will determine the final position of a candidate at the interview. Limitations of interviews. Interviews have their own limitations in matters of selection. Some of these are: number 1, subjective judgment of the interviewer may be based on his prejudices, likes, dislikes, biases, etc. Number 2, one prominent characteristic of a candidate may be allowed to dominate appraisal of the entire personality. Number 3, the interviewer's experience may have created a close association between some particular trait and a distinctive type of personality. And number 4, some managers believe that they are good at character analysis based on some pseudo-scientific methods and are guided by their own abilities at it. Qualities of good interviewer. A good interviewer should have certain qualities, which are: number 1, knowledge of the job or other things with which interviews are concerned. Number 2, emotional maturity and a stable personality. Number 3, sensitivity to the interviewee's feelings and a sympathetic attitude. And number 4, extrovert behavior and considerable physical and mental stamina. Guidelines for improving interviews. Not all interviews are effective. Their effectiveness can be improved if certain points are kept in mind by an interviewer. Number 1, an interview should have a definite time schedule with ample time for interview. It should not be hurried. Number 2, the impersonal approach should be avoided. Number 3, interview should have the necessary element of privacy. And number 4, the interviewer should listen carefully to what the applicant says, and the information collected should be carefully recorded either while the interview is going on or immediately thereafter. Physical examination. Applicants who get over one or more of the preliminary hurdles are sent for a physical examination either to the organization's physician or to a medical officer approved for the purpose. Purposes. A physical examination serves certain purposes. They are: number 1, it gives an indication regarding fitness of a candidate for the job concerned. Number 2, it discovers existing disabilities and obtains a record thereof, which may be helpful later in deciding the company's responsibility in the event of a workman's compensation claim. Number 3, it helps in preventing employment of those suffering from some type of contagious diseases. And number 4, it helps in placing those who are otherwise employable but whose physical handicaps may necessitate assignment only to specified jobs. Contents of physical examination. Physical examination covers these points. Number 1, the applicant's medical history. Number 2, his physical measurements like height, weight, etc. Number 3, general examination, skin, musculature and joints. Number 4, special senses, that is visual and auditory activity. Number 5, clinical examination of eyes, ears, nose, throat and teeth. Number 6, examination of chest and lungs. Number 7, checkup of blood pressure and heart. Number 8, pathological test of urine, blood, etc. Number 9, X-ray examination of chest and other parts of the body. And number 10, neuropsychiatric examination, particularly when medical history or a physician's observations indicate an adjustment problem. You would realize that the importance of these characteristics varies from job to job, and therefore different weightages have to be given to each for an overall evaluation. Reference checks. The applicant is asked to mention in his application the names and addresses of 3 persons who usually know him well. These may be his previous employers, friends, or professional colleagues. They are approached by mail or telephone and requested to furnish their frank opinion without incurring any liability about the candidate either on specified points or in general. They are assured that all information supplied would be kept confidential. Yet often either no response is received or it is generally a favorable response. Final decision. Applicants who cross all the hurdles are finally considered. If there are more persons than the number required for a job, the best ones, that is those with the highest scores, are finally selected. Now let's summarize the unit. This unit has helped us to follow the process of selection in an organization right from the conception of an idea that a suitable person is to be put on a given job to the point of ultimately selecting the most suitable person for it, putting him at ease and making him feel at home with his fellow employees, his supervisor, and the organization as a whole. It has helped you to understand the various activities involved in the process and the order in which these are carried out. It has given you insight into the various alternatives and methods of various activities and under what circumstances each is advisable. It has also helped you to realize the various precautions to be taken so that your efforts under each activity bring desired results. You were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC-002 Human Resource Management. Course Coordinator Professor Nayantara Padhi from School of Management Studies IGNOU. Voiceover by Harpreet Kaur. Edited by Tarannum Jahan. Program assisted by Jagbandhu Jana. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.